Welcome back to Under the Sink Light. This week is vegan salted caramel sauce. So there's going to be a lot of information in this one. My first point is make sure your station is set up before you really get rolling, because once you start boiling sugar and once you get to the point where you have to do stuff, you don't want to be scrambling around. So in a stainless steel pot, or one that you can see the color of the sugar in, so preferably not a dark one. You're going to do 3 cups of white sugar and then 3/4 cups of water. And you're not going to turn the heat on yet. We're going to get the rest of our tools and ingredients ready. For this, we're using coconut milk. It is full fat. Some brands say full fat specifically. This one doesn't specify one way or the other, but it is going to have that fat cap or coconut cream on top, and that's what we are really looking for to essentially replace the butter that would normally be in traditional caramel. So you want to make sure to get it all off the lid. If you prefer, you can always put the can in the fridge for a few hours and kind of let it separate naturally. And then we're just going to move that to a measuring cup to make it easier to use later on. Our other ingredients are going to be vanilla extract and kosher salt. And the salt is optional. I like salted caramel, so that's what we're going with. You're going to need a whisk and a rubber spatula. And then you want to turn on your pot to medium heat. So my stove goes 1 to 7, so I did right in the middle at 3.5. And this is going to take some time, but you definitely don't want to blast the heat and rush it, because then you're going to be in trouble. And this one is important. Get a rag or a towel ready and have it ready with warm water, because if you burn yourself, you need to wipe off the hot sugar, and cold isn't going to do anything for you. It will keep burning as long as it's on you. We're going to give it a gentle stir, like maybe just a couple minutes in, so that it doesn't swish all the way up the sides, and then you're going to leave it alone. Don't stir it again. Don't touch it. So 10 minutes in, we start seeing some bubbles. The sugar is dissolving. Not a whole lot is happening right now. You don't really have to babysit at this point. And then here we are at 20 minutes in. I did turn on the overhead light, so the sink light is still on though. You're going to see rapid bubbling. It is going to start steaming a little bit, and you're going to see it start inching up the sides a little bit. And this is kind of when you want to start paying a little more attention. Get your hot pads or oven mitts ready. 25 minutes in, our bubbles are slowing down, and you can see that it's starting to creep up the side a little bit from where that water line was, and we're getting a little bit of color. If you want, you can get a pastry brush with clean water and go above that crystallization line, but really it'll just slow down the process, although make it neater. 30 minutes in, we're getting some color. Our bubbles are definitely getting slower. You'll see that it's crystallizing on that edge. And then at 35 minutes, this is really when things are starting to get moving, so you want to make sure everything is ready at this point. Get your towel, warm water, and my pot is a little uneven, or my stove is, so I'm gently picking it up and swirling it just to distribute the area that's a little more cooked, and then I'm turning the pot so that hot spot is at a different point. Ideally, you wouldn't have to do that, but it is what it is. If you have a longer oven mitt, I would definitely use that on your whisking hand. And then you do want to wear an oven mitt on the pouring liquid hand, because it is going to steam significantly, because you're adding room temperature or cold liquid to a very hot sugar mixture. Okay, now we're at 40 minutes. We're starting to get that amber color that we're looking for. Kind of like a deep amber beer color almost. So this is when all the action is going to happen, and you really want to be careful because it goes from this to burnt very, very quickly. So turn your heat off, get your mitts on. I had to grab this without the mitt first, but You're going to put that long mitt on your whisking hand and the short mitt on your pouring hand, and you are going to whisk the whole time you are pouring and keep going. In it goes. See all that steam? And it's going to spit at you too, so maybe lean back a little, but keep whisking. Because at very first, that liquid is going to seize up in the sugar, but you want to keep mixing because you still have a lot of heat in that pot. And you keep going until all the little fat bits from the coconut milk are not bits anymore. They're all incorporated. So it's going to be a couple minutes, but after that initial steam, you can remove your oven mitts and just keep going for a few minutes. And just keep in mind as you're going that it is still very hot sugar mixture, and it will still burn significantly. And you want to avoid that because sugar burns are probably one of the worst things to experience in the kitchen, besides maybe grease burns. I don't know, kind of tied in my book. But once you get those coconut bits, the fat all worked out, this is when you can add your salt. I did about half of a teaspoon, but you can do it to taste, and you can do it a little later also so that you could actually taste it. And then we're going to do about a teaspoon of vanilla extract. But I'm just kind of eyeballing it. It just enhances the caramel flavor. But if you prefer, you can even try almond extract, but I would wait until it's a little bit cooler. And then once everything is incorporated, you can let it sit for a little bit, but as it cools down, you're going to want to come back to it and whisk it so that you can release more of that steam, more of the heat, and to prevent a skin forming on top. You're not going to scrape the edges of that crystallized sugar. Part of it will melt into the caramel, and as you whisk, it'll get incorporated, but don't worry too much about it. And then once it is cooled enough, it's still going to be pretty hot. You want to transfer it to glass jars. I do not recommend plastic at all, otherwise you will end up melting it. And then you're going to leave the glass jars open and on the counter until it is totally cooled down to room temperature or just slightly warm. And then you'll put the lids on and refrigerate. It will thicken as it cools, but it will also separate a little bit. So just before you use it, give it a good stir, and then it's ready to go. Once it is cooled is when you could transfer it to a plastic container like a squeeze bottle if you prefer, or if you want to put it in one of those syrup bottles that have the pumps, you can do that at that point also. But just let them cool and then put the lids on and put them in the fridge, and I find that's the best way to store it, especially if you're not going to get through it quickly. So here's how it looks. Right before I put it in the fridge, you can see a little separation. But it's also going to thicken up, and then it's going to get mixed before it gets used anyway. I like to use this in lattes or on desserts, but it's totally up to you. I hope you enjoy, and thank you for watching.